The story begins by introducing a young woman named Nina, who lives in New York City with her mother. As it happens, Nina's mother was once a dancer herself, and Nina is now a ballet dancer working with the New York City Ballet Company. Nina harbors a dream of one day becoming the lead dancer. While commuting to work, Nina spots a girl on the train who bears a striking resemblance to her, though she is unable to get a clear look at her face. Upon reaching her dance troupe, Nina learns that their principal dancer, the one who holds the lead role, is about to be replaced as the audience has grown weary of watching her. The leader of their troupe is a man named Thomas. He announces to the group that he will soon select a new lead dancer, a role known as the Swan Queen. To this end, he plans to hold auditions, and Nina is determined to win the coveted title of Swan Queen. However, as Nina is leaving after practice, she witnesses the ousted lead dancer, the one who has just been dismissed, trashing her dressing room. Naturally, the dancer is consumed by frustration over having been stripped of her position as the Swan Queen, the lead dancer. After wreaking havoc in the room, she storms out. Once she has left, Nina enters the room. This is, in fact, the very room where the Swan Queen prepares for her performances. Nina, too, yearns to claim this room as her own, a symbol that she has attained the status of lead dancer. Consequently, she proceeds to the audition, where she delivers a truly magnificent performance. Everyone is deeply impressed by her dancing. When she approaches Thomas, he explains to her that while she performed the dance of the White Swan flawlessly, she must also perform the dance of the Black Swan, as the latter represents a complete antithesis of the former. Nina then attempts to perform the Black Swan's dance as well. However, midway through the performance, her focus wavers, causing her to stumble. A mistake has occurred. Nina is now distressed because her audition did not go well. As she steps out, she notices a girl in the corridor, dressed in black, who looks exactly like her. Their faces are identical, though the girl's attire is black. Moreover, there's a palpable confidence in the girl's demeanor and gait that leaves Nina staring in awe. Upon returning home, Nina embraces her mother and weeps, distraught over her failed audition. She is determined to identify exactly where she went wrong. Consequently, she begins practicing once again. However, this time she dances with such frenetic energy that she loses her balance and injures her foot. When Nina's mother examines her foot, she discovers that her toenail has broken. This implies that she will need to rest for a few days. Yet, Nina flatly refuses. She declares, "I've realized exactly where I made my mistake. Tomorrow, I will perform the Black Swan dance once more, so that I may be chosen as the group's lead dancer, the Swan Queen." The very next day, she returns to Thomas and requests, "I wish to perform the Black Swan dance. I have discovered where I went wrong." Thomas replies, "It is too late now. We have already selected someone else for the role of the Swan Queen. Her name is Veronica." Hearing this, Nina is crestfallen and turns to leave. However, Thomas stops her and explains, "Whenever you perform the White Swan dance, you dance beautifully, but you do not perform the Black Swan dance with the same proficiency. This is because the Black Swan cannot be mastered through mere performance or practice. Rather, you must set yourself free. You must liberate your soul from all constraints. You must feel the Black Swan." Nina responds, "I will give my absolute best." At this moment, Thomas attempts to move closer to her. However, Nina pushes him away and abruptly leaves the room. Thomas is neither angry nor upset by this. Rather, he is pleased. In fact, this was a test. To perform as the Black Swan, a dancer must possess immense rage, as that is the very essence of the character. And now, Nina has passed her final test. Thomas had known all along that Nina was an exceptional dancer. That is precisely why he had tested her capacity for anger, a test she successfully cleared. The following day, when Nina arrives at the dance company, she discovers that the Swan Queen is none other than herself, as her name is prominently displayed there. Nina is overjoyed at this sight. She calls her mother to share the news that she has been selected to play the Swan Queen. As it happens, her mother was also a dancer. However, she was forced to give up dancing after becoming pregnant. Now, she seeks to fulfill, through her daughter, the very dream she once envisioned for herself, that of becoming the Swan Queen. Subsequently, Nina is taken to a party where she is formally introduced to everyone present. The entire gathering applauds Nina, leaving her beaming with happiness. Suddenly, she notices that the skin on her finger is peeling away, leaving it bleeding. She heads to the restroom and proceeds to peel off the loose skin. The very next moment, she realizes that her finger had been perfectly fine just moments before. She had needlessly injured herself. This suggests that something is going terribly wrong with Nina. As she exits the restroom, she encounters a dancer who previously held the role of the Swan Queen, the one who has now been dismissed. She speaks harshly and disparagingly to Nina. She even tells her that she has no right to take on this role because she is incapable of performing it. She claims Nina is a weak girl, whereas performing the Black Swan requires a strong personality. She insinuates that Nina must have compromised herself with Thomas in order to secure the role, the very role that had always belonged to her, but was now snatched away. At this moment, Thomas arrives and escorts Nina away. He reassures her, telling her not to pay any heed to what others say, but to focus solely on her own performance. The following day, when Nina arrives to practice, she learns that the girl who previously held the title of Swan Queen has met with an accident. Everyone is deeply saddened by this news. Consequently, the rehearsal for the day is canceled. Afterward, Thomas takes Nina to the hospital, where she confesses to him, "I feel that whatever condition she is in today is entirely my fault." Thomas attempts to reassure Nina, explaining that this is not the case at all. He reveals that the girl is actually very strong-willed, immensely brave, in fact, and that she caused her accident deliberately because she wanted to punish herself. It was precisely this bravery and courage that allowed her to remain the Swan Queen for so many years. Following this revelation, Nina goes to visit the girl, whose condition appears to be extremely critical. Upon returning home, Nina does something she has never done before. She closes and locks her door before going to sleep. The next day, when Nina arrives for dance practice, she works exceptionally hard. However, once everyone else has left, Thomas tells Nina to dance with him, and he begins touching her in a strange, inappropriate manner. Nina feels uncomfortable and disturbed by this. She stops dancing, overcome with panic. Thomas then tells her, "You still harbor fear within you, and as long as that fear remains, you will never be able to perform the dance of the Black Swan." Having said this, he walks away. Tears well up in Nina's eyes as she pushes herself to the limit during practice. Just then, Lily, another dancer performing alongside her, approaches her. Lily tells Nina that she is an excellent dancer and is sure to deliver a magnificent performance. Hearing this makes Nina feel good. The next day, Nina resumes her dance practice, dancing continuously without a break. However, Thomas does not tell her to stop. Consequently, Nina becomes utterly exhausted, and for a moment, her patience snaps. She begins to shout at Thomas, demanding to know what exactly he wants from her. Thomas replies, "I heard you were crying yesterday. As long as you remain a weak girl, you will never be able to perform the Black Swan." He explains that to perform the Black Swan, she needs to be incredibly strong. Nina realizes that Lily must have been the one to tell Thomas all of this. She confronts Lily and tells her to stay out of her business from now on. Lily apologizes to Nina and invites her out for the evening. Nina forgives her, and the two head to a club where Nina ends up drinking heavily. In reality, Lily had spiked her drink. Afterward, Nina dances wildly, completely losing all sense of awareness. When she finally comes to her senses, she returns home, only to find that Lily has followed her there. Once inside, the two grow very close and become intimate. When Nina wakes up the next morning, she discovers that Lily is no longer there. What puzzles Nina is that the door is still locked from the inside. If Lily left, where could she have gone? When she unlocks the door and steps out, she finds her mother sitting right there, looking deeply saddened. In truth, Nina had always lived under her mother's constant supervision, but in recent days, she had begun locking her door from the inside. And now, Nina arrives once again for dance practice, only to find that Lily has beaten her there and is already practicing. Everyone is watching her. Nina realizes that Lily deliberately left her sleeping and came here early just so she could showcase her dancing to everyone. Afterward, she tells Thomas, "I apologize for being late today." Thomas simply replies, "Go ahead and do your practice." Today, Nina practices her dance with intense fury. Once she finishes, she approaches Lily and says, "I know you spiked my drink last night, which is why I slept in so late. You could have woken me up if you wanted to, but you didn't." Hearing this, Lily is completely taken aback. She replies, "I certainly went out with you last night, but after dinner, I went straight home. I didn't come back to your place with you." Nina, however, does not believe a word she says. She is convinced that Lily is doing this to her on purpose because she wants to take her place. That is, she wants to become the Swan Queen herself. Now, while Nina is practicing, she notices Lily and Thomas exchanging glances. She feels certain that Lily will soon take over her role. Consequently, when the time comes for her final performance, she performs with explosive energy. She is determined not to make a single mistake, for she cannot afford to lose her position as the lead dancer, the Swan Queen. She delivers a magnificent performance, which earns her immense appreciation from everyone watching. Thomas, too, is delighted with her performance. Afterward, she is sent to the tailor to be fitted for the Black Swan, or rather, the Swan Queen, costume. While her measurements are being taken, Lily arrives on the scene. Upon seeing Lily, Nina asks her why she has come there. Lily explains that she, too, is there to be fitted for the Swan Queen costume, because she is Nina's understudy. She states that if, for any reason, Nina is unable to perform, she will step in and perform in her place. Disturbed by this revelation, Nina goes to Thomas and tells him that Lily has always wanted to usurp her role, her very position. She insists that she does not want Lily to be her understudy. Thomas tells Nina that everyone in the world aspires to become the Swan Queen. However, he explains she must secure her position through her own diligence and hard work. She should focus on her own performance rather than worrying about the outside world. If she performs well, no one will ever be able to take her position away from her. Hearing this brings Nina a sense of relief. Subsequently, she redoubles her efforts and continues practicing throughout the entire day. Gradually, one by one, everyone else leaves and night falls. Nina is practicing alone when suddenly the lights go out. She then witnesses Thomas and Lily engaging in an intimate act, a sight that leaves her deeply distressed. She feels that Thomas is betraying her. On one hand, he motivates her, yet on the other, he is involved with Lily, the very person he appointed as her understudy. Tormented by these events, she goes to the hospital to visit the dancer who previously held the title of Swan Queen. She tells the former Swan Queen that she understands her pain. Upon seeing Nina, the woman begins to inflict self-harm, a horrifying sight that causes Nina to flee the scene in terror. Nina now begins to experience strange, hallucinatory visions. Overwhelmed by extreme distress, she collapses and loses consciousness right there in her home. When she finally regains consciousness, she finds her mother standing right beside her. Her mother tells her to stay home today because she is unwell. However, Nina remembers that today is her Black Swan, or rather, her Swan Queen, performance. Consequently, she sets out to leave the house, but her mother remarks that she has changed completely and insists that she ought to stay home. Nina disregards her mother's words and heads to the dance company. Upon arriving, she discovers that Thomas had prepared Lily to perform the Black Swan dance. Seeing this fills her with rage. She retreats to her dressing room and begins preparing herself for that very same dance. When Thomas observes this, he does not stop her. He senses the anger within her, an emotion he had always wanted to see in her for the Black Swan role, a state devoid of any fear. The dance performance then begins, with Nina performing the White Swan dance first. She performs beautifully. However, deep within her heart and mind, she harbors a lingering insecurity that Lily might take her place for the Black Swan dance, that Thomas might replace her. This anxiety shatters her concentration. She falls on stage, but quickly regains her composure, rises once more, completes the entire dance, and exits the stage. She is deeply displeased with herself. Thomas is also present there. She tells Thomas that the mishap was not her fault, that she had fallen on stage because of someone else. Now, however, the Black Swan performance is about to begin, so she heads to her dressing room. There, she finds Lily already dressed in the Black Swan costume and applying makeup. Lily taunts Nina, asking, "If you couldn't even perform the White Swan properly, how do you expect to handle the Black Swan? I will be the one performing the Black Swan." Hearing this ignites Nina's fury. She lunges at Lily, shattering a mirror in the process. She then attacks Lily using a shard from broken glass. In this confrontation, Lily meets her death. Subsequently, Nina hides Lily's body in the bathroom, and her eyes begin to undergo a transformation. She is now fully transformed into a Black Swan. There is absolutely no fear left within her. Her eyes burn with rage, and it is with this very anger and fearlessness that she steps out to perform a performance that captivates everyone. The entire audience rises to their feet, applauding her enthusiastically. Thomas, too, is delighted by her performance. Nina then returns to her dressing room, where she notices blood seeping out from under the bathroom door. She presses a cloth against it to staunch the flow, just as there's a knock at her door. When she opens it, she finds Lily standing outside. Seeing Lily leave her utterly stunned. At that very moment, she feels a sharp pain in her abdomen. She looks down to discover that she had wounded herself with a shard of glass. She pulls a glass shard out. Shortly thereafter, Thomas approaches her and sees the blood flowing from her body. He tells Nina, "You delivered a magnificent performance. It will go down in history." Nina replies to Thomas, "Now, I can truly call myself a perfect and exceptional dancer." Thomas immediately calls for an ambulance. Ultimately, Nina's story is the story of those who are willing to go to any lengths, crossing any boundary, to achieve their goals and attain absolute perfection. On this path, they lose all sense of right and wrong, just as Nina did in her life. From the very beginning, she aspired to become the Swan Queen, a goal for which she was willing to go to any lengths. Everything she was experiencing, the events unfolding around her, were merely hallucinations. That is to say, they existed solely within her own perception. However, towards the end of the story, she physically harmed Lily, driven by the conviction that Lily was attempting to usurp her position, specifically the role of the Black Swan. It was for this reason that she attacked her. Yet in reality, in her actual life, none of this was truly happening. It was in fact her own internal fear, a fear lodged deep within her heart, that was manifesting in this way. Consequently, it was not Lily whom she wounded, but herself. She inflicted the injury upon herself because, after waiting so long to attain her ultimate goal, she felt her performance as the White Swan had fallen short of perfection just before reaching that pinnacle. Thus, she punished herself. Nina constantly saw Lily in her visions because she recognized her as her primary competitor. She harbored a deep-seated fear of her. This is why she was perpetually hallucinating her presence. Early in the story, Nina also spotted a girl who looked just like her while riding on a train. In reality, she was not merely seeing her own reflection, but rather another person, a figure in whom she was searching for a version of herself, reflecting her desire to transcend her current identity and become something entirely different. Furthermore, the narrative illustrates that whenever Nina loses her focus, whenever fear takes root in her heart or she becomes distracted, her performance suffers, and she loses her concentration. However, when she finally allowed herself to be completely liberated at the very end, she delivered an absolutely magnificent performance as the Black Swan. From this, we can glean a valuable lesson. Whenever we are called upon to perform, we should simply let go and allow ourselves to flow freely. We must not harbor any form of fear or insecurity within our minds or hearts. Doing so will inevitably result in a poor performance or a failed endeavor. Although Nina ultimately achieved everything she desired, it appears that she meets her demise at the very end. Therefore, one should pursue perfection and chase after any goal, only to the extent that one can still find joy and fulfillment in the process, because only then does attaining something hold any meaning. So, that was a complete story of the film Black Swan. We hope you enjoyed the story.